Aviation industry is projected to have a shortage of commercial pilots. Now is the time to start training. Ocala Flying Club has started a scholarship for the youth of Marion County ages 17 to 24. The club will donate up to $4,000 towards a pilot's license. This will help get the student on their way to obtaining their commercial pilot license. If this sounds like something you would be interested in, or if you know someone that would be, please contact Ocala Aviation Services, 861-7484.
All right, 12 minutes now before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. It's a beautiful day.
It is gorgeous.
You might want to say, you know what, let's turn off the internet. Let's go out to the beach. Do you remember when under what was that thing called that caused all the oils, the balls, the tar balls on the beach? What was that thing called?
Oh, the BP oil spill?
The BP. I couldn't remember what gas company. How can I forget that? But anyway, I was reading the other day that they're still seeing some. I guess there's still evidence of this. I thought we cleaned this all up. I didn't know there was still, I don't know if it's here in Florida or up in the Louisiana area.
Still an issue.
Patti Goldman is on the phone. She is going to talk to us about being good stewards of this planet, and she's the managing attorney for the Earth Justice Northwest Regional Office up in Seattle. Oil and gas activities that continue to threaten Alaska, America's Arctic Ocean, and the threats of offshore drilling in the continental United States. Patti Goldman. Good morning, Patti.
Good morning.
Where are you? Are you out west?
I am in Seattle.
Well, thank you for being up early to be with us today.
Oh, well, I want to enjoy your beautiful day there.
Is it beautiful where you are? Because I don't know. Does it go that far?
Just, vicariously through the phone wire.
Oh.
There you go.
I do that, too. I go online. I look at Google or I look at webcams. So look how nice it is over there. Yeah. Well today's that we're here. Yeah. I never actually saw the, what do you call the tar balls, but Robin and I do music, and we made a silly song to try to express our thoughts about it. And, Jimmy Fallon did a similar song.
Did he really?
Yeah, he
was
sure
probably
did.
after ours.
It's having fun with the word balls is what it is.
Yeah, it's way after ours.
I don't know. We spoke to a lady. I can't remember what tribe she was with up in Alaska. Quinnipiac tribe? Is that what it was? And maybe you even know her, Patti, but she, when she talked to us about the plight of the people who live there, you really felt the passion and the need to try to rethink what we've been doing.
Oh, they are right up there in the area of our country that is the hardest hit by climate change already. There are villages where the storms and the sea level rise already happening are having their islands just drop into the sea. And there's one, it's a group of Alaska Natives, it's called the Kivalina. They're trying to get money to relocate so they can leave their homeland to go somewhere else. And on the northern shore, you have populations of Alaska Natives who are just completely dependent on the marine resources. And those are the very marine resources that are in harm's way.
And that's that's what her focus was. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's what her focus was, yeah.
Inupiaq, that was it.
Yeah.
The Inupiat, yeah. And Shell has leases where they want to drill right in the bowhead whale migration area, in rookeries for the walrus, right where if an oil spill were to happen, it would wipe out these resources. It would just be devastating. And I know it was horrific in the Gulf. That happened 5 years ago with Deepwater Horizon. Just awful what we saw unfold with the explosions and then the oil spill and the dispersants. But there's an infrastructure there that is completely lacking up in Alaska. The nearest Coast Guard station is 1,000 miles away. The storms are fierce, and the weather's harsh, and there's sea ice. And what they did in Deepwater Horizon just doesn't work up there. You can't really do booms and burning of oil when you've got sea ice above and below and all intertwined with the oil.
Oh, wow.
But they're pushing to go up there. They're trying to get their permits lined up and head up there this summer.
But I'm going to tell you something, that if somebody were to call me a hypocrite, they would be right. And I'm going to tell you why. Because here I am on one hand saying we've got to do something to clean it all up. And at the next hand, I'm driving a car everywhere I go. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like I'm part of the problem. And I have no idea what the solution would be. Whenever I hear somebody talk about an alternative like solar or something like that, somebody else will point out that it's impractical, it would actually cost me more. I don't know. So I don't know what the solution is.
Well, we're starting to see a lot more electric vehicles, so you get them off of oil. And there are now requirements for changing fuel supplies in California, Oregon, and Washington is considering it. Hopefully it'll start migrating through the country to change the carbon intensity of our fuel. And so that's the hope, I think, on the supply side, as well as different kinds of transportation systems and, high-speed transit and things like that. I think it's all happening on a lot of fronts where people are working on solutions and technologies, and then we're working on having a smarter way to deal with supply. But the thing about the Arctic is a study just came out in Nature magazine late last year where they were looking at the carbon stores around the world, and they identified the Arctic as one that just should not be used. It's not at all developed yet. It'll cost $120 a barrel. Right now, it's about $50 a barrel. And the risks are so great. And so if you look at it, that's one we could say, let's just keep that in the ground. We've got a lot of oil we're developing elsewhere, and stick with those resources while we're trying to figure out how to lessen our dependency on oil.
So you're not against oil, you're just against oil from that part of the world.
Well, like you, I drive a car too.
Right.
We all do use oil, and so we've got to figure out realistically how do we sustain that use, but also sustain the planet.
Are we the only country that gets oil from that part of the Arctic, or are the other countries like Russia, for example, are they drilling there too?
Well, there's a race, with different countries wanting to drill up there with Russia and Norway. There is a body called the Arctic Council, which we are now going to start chairing, that is bringing governance to that activity. So there are some oil spill kind of response activities in place, and I know that John Kerry has said, the Secretary of State, that he wants to lead that body to be more responsive to climate needs. And so we'll see where that goes in the 2 years that we're going to chair that body.
And isn't there some kind of a deadline that's approaching for some kind of legislation that the public can have an input on?
Yes. So Shell has applied for a permit to go up and do exploratory drilling up in the Arctic this year, and comments can be submitted up until May 1st. If you go to our website, which is earthjustice.org at Arctic, then you would be able to find how you can submit comments. And it's really important to be heard. The people who are making this decision, this is all the way up to the Secretary of Interior, and Obama has had some directions here as well. I mean, they're political entities, and so it's important to be heard.
A couple of days ago, there was a story on CNN. I did a real quick search to see exactly so I could talk intelligently about this. But there was a story about a warm blob, and I'm looking at the map. It looks like 3 warm blobs off right where you are, actually, up in Alaska, down in the northwest part of this country, and then also down. It looks like maybe down near the L.A. area, I guess. It starts off with this paragraph: marine life seen swimming in unusual places, water temperatures warmer than they should be, no snow where there should be feet of it. Some scientists are saying the blob could be playing a factor. So when we hear about that, it counters what... because every time you turn around, there's somebody trying to argue global warming. Mm-hmm. And a cold winter with lots and lots of snow, people say, where's the global warming when it's been colder and there's been more snow? And I don't know that I understand it either. But I've always said, if we're trying to be good stewards of the planet, whether there's global warming or not, we got to be good stewards of the planet. We got to keep the fish, so they can live and we can eat. We're not going to eat if we have no fish.
Yeah.
I think that's a great approach. I mean, a lot of people say it should be called global weirding instead of global warming because it's changes in the weather patterns and pushing to extremes. And the best way to fight it is, address the carbon use of carbon-intensive fuels and energy and all of that, but also build resilience and be good stewards. So fisheries can be resilient, that waterways can. So if you don't stress the waterways to the limit, they'll be able to do better when they're hotter. Or the same thing with the forests, and if we don't just log them to the end or, disrupt them with other kinds of pollution, they will be more resilient and be able to support wildlife. So, I think that's a really good approach to be good stewards.
And I think the average person around here is very aware that we live in an area of the country here in Florida that tourists come here not just for Walt Disney World, but because it's simply a beautiful place. I mean, the beaches are not man-made. We have some beautiful camping places as well, some beautiful rivers that a lot of people don't discover until they get here. And none of that would attract anybody if it was a mess, and they act, to be frank, they're a little bit messier now than they were.
Yeah.
Well, and you have issues with sea level rise, and what will that do to a lot of the low-lying areas? I mean, there could be a lot.
Have we seen that
changes.
yet, or is that something in the future?
Well, we've seen mapping of how it would affect Florida. Where we've seen it have impacts is in the Pacific with some small island states where they're already seeing some of their shorelines diminished. And then I mentioned up in Alaska where you have a combination of sea level rise and the storms that are washing away parts of some of the remote islands.
And it's really important to get input from the people that are living and working around those areas.
The leaders of the small island states in the Pacific are some of the strongest voices for combating climate change because they're right there in harm's way. And they're talking about the causes, but also what are we going to do to be building resilience. For them it would be, the estuaries and the lands and the near shores so that they can still sustain themselves by fishing. And have healthy waters on their islands.
Patti, thank you for being on the air with us today. We've got about 40 seconds. Can you leave us with a website?
Sure. It's earthjustice.org.
Okay, easy enough. earthjustice.org. Thank you for what you're doing, Patti. You're obviously contributing to making this a better place. Thank you for doing that and for taking time out of your day to be on this radio show.
Thank you for having me.
Good stuff. Patti Goldman, earthjustice.org. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lily.